and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring writers.
Yeah, I would say that we're the best of the best.
Depending on what pool you're gathering of the best,
I think we're the best of the best in this room.
In this room,
yes.
I would say, hands down, we are the best in this room.
Yes, 100%.
You and me, out of you and me, number one.
Oh,
and number
definitely.
two.
Yeah.
And also number one. And number two.
Maybe number three.
And number one.
Yeah, that bug in the corner might.
So our problem is that we just don't write it enough. So we've started doing a challenge.
Yeah, each week we pick 4 randomly generated words. And from those words, we write a complete short story. And the whole point of doing this is to take those words and help that influence or put it into the stories that we end up writing.
Man, going without script really does not work out for us.
I mean, listen, we're doing great.
We hope that this will help you
do the right thing.
I also should mention that this is a Doof Media production podcast.
Yes.
I've never added that into the script before, and I feel like I should.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
That basically just means that we're part of the doofers. Our part in helping them out is we sign away our souls.
Yeah, they just exploit our labor like any capitalist. Regime.
They made me quit my job, made me finish college.
I don't know if those are supposed to be positive or negative, but I certainly agree.
Yeah, definitely.
We love our corporate overlords.
Yeah, I mean, without them, what? Free will? I don't like that.
We're really glad to be a Doof Media podcast.
Yeah.
One great perk is we had the original founder of So-Called Writers,
the
our
OG.
spiritual precursor podcast, Matt Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
He was on last episode, so if you haven't listened to that, please check it out. He's got A Way with Words. He's christened our podcast.
Christianed. Christed.
Crucified, our podcast.
And honestly, I feel that we had some of the best discussions on that pod.
Yeah,
we really dug in deep to the philosophy of writing.
Yeah, actually, there's something. We'll get into it after you read your story. Yeah. But you mentioned that you really took something to heart about the Matt Freeman's. I keep saying his full name. Matt's perspective on the psychology of writing.
Yeah,
or to input psychology into your writing.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, if you haven't listened to that episode, please check it out. We used all of our maturity in that episode, so this episode is going to be like 3 times as juvenile as usual.
100%.
As you might have noticed already.
Yeah. I mean, if you haven't noticed, you're probably not listening, but
that's also valid. I mean, maybe you're just here to listen to the words at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, what is listening?
I really couldn't tell you, Jarvis.
What?
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know how to recover. We do not have a guest this week, so if you're waiting for that wonderful guest intro, it's not going to happen.
It's just us.
Yeah,
it's the boys.
It's the two of us. We are going to see if we're going to add in our new segment. We're going to talk about ideas at the end of the podcast.
And we're going to call it Idea Corner.
We might do that.
Or something
like that. Yeah.
Do the idea thing.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yep. Which basically that section is simply us looking through our journals or notes or whatever, and we pick a idea that we want to talk about at length, either just to put out into the ether or to workshop or whatever.
So let's go through the structure of the podcast, because we didn't put that in the intro this time because of, us being who we are. No. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what the stories that we wrote this week based off of the 3 randomly selected words.
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 randomly selected words, and then we throw the 3 of those, and then we read stories. We'll read the stories. We'll each talk about them, and then we'll go over stories written by listeners.
Yeah, and the huge host of stories, and they're all going to be drastically better than anything we've ever written, but that's just part of the course.
Speaking of, we need to have Zoe Wayner back on.
Zoe 101?
Yep. She was on, I forget what episode, somewhere in the teens, like 16 or 17 or 15 or something.
So anyway, like lost episodes, because we haven't really been good since episode 20.
That's false. We've been good since episode 12.
Yeah.
Zoe wrote a really good story now, and nothing we've written has surpassed that high point.
Yeah.
So we need to have her back on. All right. So what were the words this week? Let's get into the structure.
Yeah, so the words for this week were remain, ant, evaporate, and...
Sheet.
Yeah.
So how was writing the words for you, Jarvis?
Writing the words for me was pretty good. I mean, this week, I decided to wait to the very last minute, which is great. You know, you get the best ideas.
So did you decide to write at the last minute, or did it just happen?
It just kind of unfolded like that, but it was a conscious decision to procrastinate as much as possible.
I can't fault you for that.
Yeah.
You know?
But writing this week was pretty good. I was inspired by events of a certain night.
You mean last night?
Last night. You know, that's crazy.
I don't know if I want to keep those noises in there.
I said, you know us crazy college kids likes to have fun.
So you wrote it on a real night that actually happened in your real life.
Yes. It's a slice of life comedy. No, it's not. But yeah, so I was just heavily inspired by these events, and I decided to sit down this morning and just go ahead and start writing. And
this is nonfiction. The story you wrote is nonfiction, is what you're saying.
Well, okay. I'm going to be honest. The events that happen is nonfiction, but some of them is kind of fabricated to kind of pull the story together, if that makes sense. So the events did happen, but not in that exact order per se, or stuff is cut out. But either way, it's a story that I liked writing. It was a good way to recount the events of that night. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed writing this week. The words were just simply used. Not the story wasn't inspired.
Centered about them. Yeah.
But yeah. What about you?
I really struggled to find time this week.
I mean, you've become president.
Yes, well, I did get a position, but I don't want to advertise it because it's theoretically supposed to be kept on the DL, which is short for down low, which is slang for keeping things under wraps, which is in an idiomatic phrase that means to keep something a secret.
No, so you can't tell them on the
I'm
podcast?
not supposed to until a week or so from now, but I'm very happy about it.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that whole happens.
Yes.
This is why you've been so busy this
And I had a book report due last Friday over a page that was, over a book that was 300 pages long. And for some reason, 300 pages is not that much. I had a whole week to read it, but I also had a lot of other stuff going on, like work, that made it hard to find time to read it. And anyway, point is, I was very busy. I do feel that I should have just sat down sometime during the week and just gone and wrote for 30 minutes. There was some nights where I was staying up until 4 a.m. So not those nights.
Yeah.
But
the other nights.
Yeah. And so I eventually wrote the story. I don't feel that great about it. But we can talk about that later. It's not bad. It's just another one of those, I don't know what the point of this was.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about them. And we had some really great stories this week.
That's fantastic.
I was really happy that two of the ones that I really wanted to talk about were picked, but there was at least 3 others that obviously we can't talk about 8 stories, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to just pick them all because then there's a risk of picking the same people over and over. And there's plenty of stuff to talk about in the ones that we chose. And all of the stories have stuff to talk about. But I was really. There was just a lot of really good stories, and then we unfortunately can't talk about all of them. But
the ones that were picked, thanks to our expert algorithm, we will talk about at the end of the pod.
Yeah, I actually just flip a coin every single time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How many sides does that coin have?
Well, when you think about it, a lot. It's got a lot of sides.
Yeah.
And also no sides.
So it's like a sphere?
Isn't everything kind of a sphere? What defines the end of one side? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you think about neurons.
Yeah. So let's jump right into your story, Jarvis. Is there anything we should know before you start reading?
No. I think that It is a story that I enjoyed writing. I'm not totally sure if I'm proud of it. I think that there are some things that can be changed and mixed up, but we'll talk about all that later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and roll with the punches.
Yeah, who's punching you?
Myself. Okay.
Okay, go ahead and start. Go ahead and start your story whenever you're ready.
This podcast is very juvenile.
We're at peak chaos energy.
Hello, my name is Jarvis Lister, and I'll be reading my story.
You don't have to introduce yourself every time.
Hello, my name is Jarvis Lister, and I'll be reading my story, Essence of Saturday.
You want to say that to the microphone?
The name of my story is Essence of Saturday.
That's a trick. I'm going to cut out all the parts where you introduce yourself.
Ah, damn. Got me. The night wound down like any other. An uneventful Saturday ripe with fun, laughs, and copious amounts of TV and music to fill in the silent parts. They drank their drink and smoked what remained. Two of these four friends, a pretty girl and thoughtful guy, abstained from the ritual, whether in anticipation of the night ahead or fear of that exact same night. Pounded water instead of $6 vodka and monitored their breath and thoughts. The night was like any other, or at least it was supposed to be. A simple drive down the street to a house more familiar than their own. There would be people trying too hard and bands having a ball. Everyone riding a different high to a destination we all clamor for. The thing that made this different, though, was a tiny square sheet of paper under the tongues of the pretty girl and thoughtful guy. And an overall ambitious sense of adventure that screamed the essence of Saturday. Christmas and $40 floodlights illuminate the hidden shack that all the fun stemmed from. The backyard felt like a stage in of itself, lit up and designed in such a way that felt purposeful but also fabricated. Chairs clustered in circles and tables graffitied over and written on. In a lot of ways, it feels like the expression of small-town college. Sporadic and without purpose. Engorged in the here and now and not too worried about the consequences. So trashy. Going in to the garage, you're met with a host of posters, tapestries, multicolored lights, and an array of cheap show equipment. Looked like a stoner's dream. Every sight defined and visceral, but kind to the eyes. The tapestries popped in and out of hues, and posters revealed secrets, all based off of the strum of a guitar and the flash of Technicolor. The homeowners did a good job, took pride in the look and popularity of their venue, kept their doors closed, locked, and did weekly maintenance on the hammock out front, shrouded under the trees and porch light. That's where the fun started. The pretty girl and her three friends hung out round there, escalating the night. Their laughs and overall joy was a beacon for stragglers. So 4 turned to 6, then 8. All gathered round and talked about trips and music and rambled through all the college small talk. A giant, by any right of the word, walked up to the group, shook hands and set his sights on the pretty girl, bumped shoulders and leaned in. Rattling off questions and questions she heard 1,000 times. He was a nice guy, thick and built, had a meaty hand and a meatier handshake. He was a good old boy, came from a local Christian college, but quickly realized the radicalism and hypocrisy was too much for his poor southern heart to bear. So he came to the party college, broken faith in hand, and tried his best to start anew. Maybe with this pretty girl, or her friends who laughed with them. In those moments and questions, though, the pretty girl couldn't make heads or tails. Was he cute or uncanny? Did he want a genuine connection or was homeboy on coochie patrol? All these questions and answers spun in her head. Round and round, down the new connections the lysergic acid traversed. She forgot about her body, the sway of the hammock and whispers of the wind, and likewise, in a harebrained escape, she flipped the hammock, friends and all. It was more of a shock than anything. Everyone popped up and dusted off, but the pretty girl stayed on the ground, head woozy. Her friends helped her up, like a newborn doe her knees knocked. The thoughtful boy had a hand on her shoulder to help stabilize her and himself. As soon as she had her bearings, he retracted it, feeling a cold wetness round it, then up his arm. He walked up to the porch light, separate from the still budding conversation, and looked at his hand. Beyond its natural pinkness, there was red, a lot of red, enough to pool in the crevices of his hand and run off onto the splintered wooden stairs. He turned back, peeking in his high, to see the back of her head, matted down and soaked in blood. Her left arm speckled in red and brown, doling from shoulder to fingertip, a tiny drip from her index. As realization hit him, everyone caught on, surrounded her. In any other situation, she'd be the first to comply. But now, in this state, she felt fine. More than fine, she felt great. Would do another flip in a heartbeat. Needless to say, it took some doing, but her friends ushered her in. Through the backyard and through the garage, into a tiny yet well-done-up bathroom, eyes following them the whole way. A mint green light fixed in the middle of a strangely tribal and leafy bathroom was somehow the most fitting place for the procedure. At first, the thoughtful boy stood watch over the bathroom, quelled comments of concern from passers-by, and kept everyone at ease. On the inside, their friends went to work, dabbing the gas over and over as if the thin paper towel would cauterize the wound. The thought bounced around in her friend's head. How far is too far? When is it time to cut their losses and take the hit for being high and seek actual help? And the bigger the gas grew, the closer and closer they all were to doing just that. The pretty girl, on the other hand, was taking pictures. The green light and red of the blood spoke sweet words to her eyes. Like poetry, it hit a chord only an altered state of mind could reach. So, while they dabbed the ever-flowing blood, she snapped pictures and posed for the masses. The thoughtful guy left his spot, forgetting entirely why he was there on the grander scheme of things. But thought the answer was at the end of the driveway, or maybe the end of the street. His absence opened up the floodgates for nosy showgoers to give their 2 cents. Each one looking it over, gave their expert opinion and snapped a pic with the pretty girl who fucked up. Nah, she ain't gonna need stitches. Staples at most. Just keep it clean. Ice it and wash it gently till it closes up. Yo, that looks bad, girl. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Eventually, the blood evaporated, and the in-house nursing student, fresh off a Four Loko, took her blood pressure and ran down the list ingrained in her head. At the end of it, she knotted up clumps of of the bloody hair around the cut, pulled the skin taut and close, adding pressure and disinfectant. Moments later, they finally left the bathroom. The surgery was a success, and the whole of the bystanders clapped away at the fast-acting nurse and the skater dudes who insisted they helped. And that was it. Fixed Up, the pretty girl stood there as her friends all left to go and reclaim the rest of the night. She stood there with her bloody hair and racing thoughts and just walked away down the driveway and the street. She was alone, hurt and had tears whelping in her eyes, but not sad. No, the drug was still in full effect, helped her find some distance from her problem, distance from herself and the gash in her head. So this pretty girl with a bump on her head and tired pale eyes walked up and past the thoughtful boy, asked for the cigs and keys before she trekked down the black road to the car. And there she stayed, curled up in the back seat, fresh cig and full thoughts, coddling her through it all. Yeah, she looked sad, embarrassed and humiliated. But it wasn't like that at all. She was fine with it. Her hair was bloody, but it's dry now. Her hands were shaking, but the cherry has calmed her nerves. All in all, it was a successful night for her. Found the fun in the high itself and the intensity of the noise. The noise that was so distant now. Like the world right outside the window. Distant and manageable.
Okay, really great story, Jarvis. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, you have this really... Okay, so one thing that I don't know how to address is... you told me the story of the actual happening before I read this story.
Yes.
Right? And before I listened to you tell it as a written story. So I don't know how much of my reading has been tainted by you telling me the actual story. Right?
Okay.
I obviously had a much easier time picturing things because I know I was primed to think of them.
Yeah.
So I want to get that out of the way. But that being said, as someone who already knew the story, I thought that it came across really clearly what was going on, even while it really meandered all over the place.
Yeah.
Not all over the place. It did follow a train of events. Like, it didn't go off on tangents.
Yeah,
really.
but I do get what you mean, how it stayed in certain places.
Yeah. And it's like, we didn't leave the party until the very end, so it's easier. We can feel... The setting stays all the way through. It is very much your style of the meandering, poetic thoughts. So I think that's really good.
You know I love the meander.
Yeah. So how was writing a piece that was written off of something that actually happened? How did that affect your writing of it?
I think it was a lot simpler, I feel, because I already knew exactly what the events were, so I spent more time trying to figure out the words to accurately describe those events. And also, it was a nice way just to recount them from my point of view, but it also gave me the opportunity to step outside of my own point of view and like look at the whole scope. So it honestly was just like writing anything else except like it felt like I had notes of exactly what happened, so I just had to fill in the blanks basically. Yeah.
So just to point out the obvious, so you were the thoughtful boy, right?
I mean, so here's the
so first, yes, but also...
So first, yes, but at the same time, so basically the events that happened on that night was, of course, a lot longer. A lot more meandering. There was stuff happening in between these events that I thought, I enjoyed it, and if I had time to actually write a longer piece, I would add it in, and it would kind of set the tone a little bit stronger, I feel. But, of course, with some of those points, I had to cut them. So I don't really feel that this character of the thoughtful boy is exactly me.
Okay.
But is definitely inspired by how I acted in these events.
Okay. So it's a facet of you. So it's a different character version of yourself.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because as someone who idealizes fiction and reads fiction, right? I don't like writing nonfiction. Although I think it's actually like a really good angle to take. And I feel that more people should experiment in that. Like, for example, at our university, we have, creative writing courses, which are divided into fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. And a lot of people take the fiction classes, and they're good. But I feel...
The nonfiction classes, though.
Yeah, the nonfiction and the poetry classes are fantastic, even if you don't like writing either of those, because you learn a lot about the stories within yourself, right? Yeah. And I think, those stories don't necessarily have to be, the times you get high at parties, right? But they can be, some of the emotional things that you go through. So that's actually a good segue into. So I am wondering, what do you think is the emotional through line of this piece? What is the theme? So and putting on our literary glasses.
Yeah, just let me put these on.
Because I really like the ending message. I don't know if it's what goes through the entire piece. I need to pay more attention. But the idea of like the outside world being distant and manageable. I don't know. That's one dot on the theme line graph.
Yeah, and I feel like with that was definitely a theme that I came up with at the end.
Yeah.
So it didn't follow through the whole story, but I wrote that whole story building to a theme that I didn't know what it was. But then once I wrote that like last section, I figured it out. It's like, oh, this is the point. The overall thing, because when I first sat down, I wanted this to actually be a totally separate thing, not even for Do the Right Thing. I wanted just to write it out and kind of portray it in a very positive light, which, of course I would have to do like a lot of work with that. But the whole idea behind it is that, yes, at parties stuff does happen, but there's this overall very positive and almost kind of beautiful vibe about it. Like, going back to the actual event, I know when my friend did get hurt her head, the entire party honestly came in and like supported her and like actually tried to fix her up. And people were coming up with all these ideas on like, oh, well, I've had plenty of bumps because I'm a skater. So I know that, that should be fine. Or then there was actually a like in-house nurse who was just there. And she was a freshman, had no real training. But...
I said, wait, really?
Yeah, she was a freshman, had no training whatsoever, but she knew like what to do, even though she was very obviously drunk.
Okay.
And I find that there's so much beauty in that.
Okay.
How people are definitely living their own lives and having fun on this night, but when they see that another human that is doing the exact same thing is in pain or is in need of help, they were so quick to drop what they're doing, like leave the band that was playing right outside and help this person that they didn't even know. So I feel that is a part of the theme that I want to create for this story.
Okay. But it's not the one that went in.
It's not the one that went in because, of course, so basically going into how I write, I come up with themes on the second draft.
Yeah, that's
to be
fair.
honest.
That's normal.
Yeah, I guess it is normal, but like I don't go into something with a theme in mind. I just write, and then after reading the words and seeing what I put down, that's when I can build a theme. And then in that second and third draft is when I can fine tune and bring that theme out. Mm-hmm. So I think by doing the right thing, I figured out the theme for this story.
Okay.
And now, if I ever decide to actually go forward with it, I'll be able to bring that theme out. I'll be able to bring out that beauty of a party with friends, but also bring out how the act of partying and the act of like doing these certain substances can be a temporary reprieve to the hustle and bustle of life and make everything else feel very distant but manageable.
Okay. That's a lot to work on.
It's a lot to work on. And I don't think any of it came through in the actual story.
Well, I think pieces of it each came through. Like the part about the nurse, I think, did touch off the helpfulness of the strangers at the party. I think to more bring it out, you could focus a little bit more on that act of like her going through and people like being genuinely concerned for her.
Yeah, because I think the tone that I went in with it was a lot more negative and definitely making fun of these people. So I feel that I need to flip it, because I know at the actual place there was this dude, never seen him before in my whole life. He wasn't even a part of the thing, but he came out and was like, "Hey, I found some Neosporin," and then he proceeded to put Neosporin all over her hair. For
those not aware, Neosporin is a disinfectant. A what?
It's like a disinfectant gel. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not harsh like alcohol. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it doesn't burn either.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I do feel like you could probably cut out a couple of the earlier paragraphs or cut them down, and so you could focus more on her getting hurt and then people coming together. Like the giant of a man, the giant guy. I wasn't really sure in the story. Like you've really set him up. Like
never came back.
He's big. He's tall. He came from a Christian college, and he's questioning it, and so he doesn't do that anymore, and he's asking questions, and then that's it.
Yeah, because I know the way for this story to actually work, it would have to be slow.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have to be paced slow, and I feel that because like when I first wrote it, I had parts like that about a lot of the characters that were in that circle of eight. Like there was also a director that I personally worked for in the past I wanted to put in there. Then this other dude who was like a spirit guide. But yeah, so I would definitely do like a lot more things with those characters, but I do feel that's definitely a huge upset on my part, putting so much time into setting him up and then him never coming back up.
I mean, it's a 30-minute story, and you weren't sure what you were writing as you were going, but yeah. So to go into a different topic about your story, you said that you wanted to talk about what Matt said on the previous podcast.
Oh, yeah. So the psychology behind the characters.
Yeah, so Matt had said that one of the things that good writing does, according in his perspective, is that it explores aspects of human psychology and how we like view the world, and provides new insights on it. And so, what's your reaction to it after thinking about it?
I mean, after thinking about it, I definitely took it to heart because I feel that in my own personal pieces. Now, of course, I think that writing just to write something that you want to read or write something that's fun, that's the whole purpose of it. But I feel that's something that sets apart just not plain Jane, but just that sets apart stories and writing that is purely for fun, and stories that say something is the psychology behind the characters and the believability of them. And that's been something that I've been actually going through my entire repertoire of stories, trying to figure out if I've been implementing these pieces of psychology. So just adding little things about the characters, going in depth as to why the characters are doing these things apart from it being the plot.
Sure. Yeah. Not to go off on a tangent, I'll just say this and we can move on pretty quick. But I do think there's an interesting conversation to be had about, like, I hear this take sometimes reacting against people wanting stories to have a big literary theme, of people saying, well, not every story needs to be about that. It can just be something for fun, and it doesn't have to have a literary theme and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And while I completely agree that some stories really it's totally valid for entertainment to just be for fun. For Meaty MD, we're going to be doing an episode later on where we're going to talk about the 1986 Transformers movie, and that's just fun. The the theme of it kind of falls apart as soon as you really start poking at it. But it's a fun movie, and I really enjoy it, and that's why I want to talk about it with him.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel that that's what sets it apart. That's what sets it apart. Great writing from good writing. It's that central theme and that through line throughout it.
Well, what
the care that you take
what I'm
from
going to say is that, like, the thing is that you can have both.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can have a fun, entertaining story and have a really cool meaning that, like, makes things better. So, just the saying that it can just be for fun, yes, it can be, but there's also no reason it can't be fun and also have a big, important meaning.
Exactly.
Right?
Because, I mean, some of the best movies are fun and they have a point.
Yeah. I mean, not that they need one point or that there's a single theme in anything, but, like, they make you think, that they make you feel some sort of way. Yeah. Anyway, we don't need to make this a big discussion.
Yeah.
We always make you too much time, but that's a conversation for another day for sure.
Definitely.
If you were to rewrite it, what would you change, Jarvis?
If I were to rewrite it, I would. So I've been reading this list of common errors that writers have. I've talked about this in the past. And one thing that I've noticed within this piece as I was reading it is that it starts in the wrong place, I feel.
Okay.
It starts too early. Because if the whole thing takes place at this party, it should start at this party. It shouldn't start back at a undisclosed apartment. Even though there are like a couple of lines in that first paragraph.
I did really like they go to a house that is more familiar than their own. I really like that line.
And I also really like that. I feel that line can work in a different place, but I do feel that it's starting where it did is kind of muddying the waters on what I want the image to be in the reader's mind. So I would probably start a little bit later. If I had like a lot more time, I would take.
I mean, you could just start at her falling over and hitting her head. Like, you could start literally like the second before that happens.
True. Yeah. And sprinkle in all the like details later.
Yeah.
I'll probably start somewhere around there. I would, if I had more time, I would take it a lot slower. Let a lot of the things breathe. I wanted to spend so much more time on the imagery of this place, because, like, in my mind, this is very nice picture of this house, and I wanted to kind of go into more detail with that, but of course I didn't have time. And then as I said before, just fill out this theme that I now know I want to make going into it. And of course, time, effort, money. It's going to take a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, $50 for Jarvis to rewrite the story.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed writing it, and I also enjoy where it might end up going. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, to transition away from my
masterpiece,
crazy cool story, let's go into yours, Matthias.
All right.
Is there anything that you want to say before we go ahead and head up?
Nothing that we can't say afterwards.
Okay.
All right. My story is called Little Friends. The little ant poked its head out from the tube. It waved its feelers about, head cocked, perplexed. A new environment. It seemed to hesitate for a second, unsure of whether to step forward or retreat. "Come on, smell the goodies. You can do it," Jack whispered to himself. He'd spent a long time making this new room for the terrarium, and this was the most important moment. Earlier that morning, Jack had found a bluebird while biking around the neighborhood. He'd heard it tweeting in the grass and had let the bike fall where he stopped as he approached it. It was hopping around, in pain. Cautiously, he'd approached it, his hand snaking closer, careful not to scare it. It stopped hopping and just stared at him, beady little eyes, blue feathers still. Its wing was broken, sticking out at an odd angle. The ant colony was a collection of 3 small terrariums connected with a series of tubes, each room about the size of a fishbowl. Now, there was a new feeding room. "You're probably never going to fly again, little bird," Jack had said. "Your wing's broken." He reached his hand out and the bird didn't move. "Here, let me help you." Jack had used to just dump food in one of the main rooms, but the little ants kept trying to crawl up the lid and had stung him more than once. Plus, that room was now being filled with squishy larvae and pasty white egg rooms, and he didn't want to risk dropping something on the poor little babies. "I've got you, don't worry," Jack said, cupping the bird. It was warm in his hands, and the feathers were soft. He held it tight. "A wing broken like that, you won't be able to fly. Probably ever. And what's good a bird that can't fly?" The little eyes peered at him between his fingers. He could feel its hollow little bones. The feeding room was lined with a coarse yellow sand, something that they could use as more material in the nests if they wanted. Around the edge of the floor was a ring of nice fluffy moss to absorb excess moisture, which could cause fungus or mold, which wouldn't be healthy for the ants. The top of the room was open, but Jack had smeared a slick substance around the edge, which would deter any would-be explorers. He'd found it online. A little trough of water punctuated the side opposite the tube. In the center of the flat little field was the smashed remains of a bluebird. It was sprawled out in a messy way. One wing flared all the way out, the other compressed into its chest so that the wingtips stuck straight up. The little uncertain ant finally stepped out of the tube. It skittered in short bursts, testing the air. It tasted the moss, full of moisture and fibers. It felt the gritty sand, warm from the heat lamp. It couldn't see, not really, not much more than the size of objects, which really didn't tell it much. But there was something evaporated into the air, something with the scent of food. It found its way to the feathers, to the blood, the food. The food was warm, but not live warm, just heat warm. It took hold of some flesh, a small piece, and took off back to the nest. As it went, it left a trail. Jack pumped a fist in the air. Yes! He leaned over the terrarium to watch the ant progress, meeting the other ants, showing the food. "You go, little guys," he whispered as they followed the trail back. He stepped back. He'd come to check on them soon, see them at the various steps in the process. For now, he had to wash his hands. He wasn't allowed to touch dead animals, ever since his sister had squealed about the rat and mouse trap. It was going to die anyway, thrashing with its fur stuck to the sticky trap. Why was it a big deal that he made it happen a little faster? He sighed. He wished he was allowed to use the box cutters again. It was a lot harder to assemble the terrariums with only safety scissors. Oh well. Ow! An ant was furiously biting his hand, stinger stinging, mandibles clenched, legs tensed and pulling. He carefully brushed it off into the terrarium and looked to find the spot around the rim where it had gotten out. He reapplied the slick substance. He picked up his sugar shaker and sprinkled some into the new food terrarium. "Eat up, little friends. You need lots of food to become big and strong and healthy." He smiled. He loved his little ants. They were just so cool. That's the story.
So, Jack is a serial killer.
I don't know.
Because it felt like there was like a little hint of setting that up, how he's very engrossed with these dead animals and how the rat was going to die anyway and he wanted to use a box cutter. So
yeah, so what I had wanted setting out with the story is to make something like a disconnect between. I wanted to make it clear that Jack does care about the ants, like, a lot. Like, He really does care about them. But he does not give a single fuck about the feelings of larger creatures.
Okay.
And
could it be because he feels like an ant?
Well, that's the thing. Like, as I was writing this was... Okay, so the process of this is that I just started going. And I wasn't sure where I was going. I didn't really think about this enough. Because of, all the distractions that I mentioned at the top of this episode. But yeah, so I really wasn't sure where I was going with this. And I came across the idea of him feeding a bluebird to the ants. In fact, it first showed up as I described the feeding room, and then and then in the middle there's a smashed bird, and I went with that. And then I wrote him finding the bird, and I cut and pasted that and put that earlier in the story. But yeah, I really don't know what I was trying to say, and as I was writing it, as the timer was going down, that's what I was like struggling to reach for. And so I think that's the problem, is that I just don't know what this is about. I have a couple of things that, like, half thoughts, like something about maybe like he only cares about them if they struggle, or like the ant fighting back, or maybe I had something about his parents which never made their way into the story, but something about like how he cares for the ants even though that they like hurt him, and that the parents don't do that, like they don't care about him because he's like hurtful to them, or I don't know, something.
I mean, there's definitely something there, and you did set up certain things that I can definitely see. If you had like another 30 minutes, right? You can be able to make it as long as possible. I can definitely see those subtle things being set up and then go into a really great ending. Because of course the voice that you're using is very typical to the other things that you write, and how you like to focus on details that deal with small things.
Yeah,
and I really like that, because it gives us a very interesting lens to look through. But yeah, I feel that. I mean, I was asking if you had like more time or like a second chance, how would you execute on these themes that you will maybe want to follow?
Well, number one, I think, is that I would take time to think about it, because I really don't know. I mean, I wrote this right before this podcast recording. I think next week I'm going to actually try to write it ahead of time.
In fact, you could write it tomorrow.
I could write it tonight. Actually, that's not true. I have to edit this tonight, and this is a lot of work. Sometime this week, I will do it actually ahead of time for once, because we're not setting a very good example, you and I.
Yeah, hey, we're not here to be role models. We're just here to.
That's true. We're just here to host the podcast.
Exactly. Look somewhere else for a role model.
Yeah. Look to Wildbow if you want a role model on how to write.
Even better, look to Don Lennon.
What?
So back on your story.
Yeah. So actually, something that I had thought of, but like I couldn't. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't immediately think of how to execute that, so I'm just not going to do it, and then something else. But I wanted something about how he like finds the bluebird injured, or maybe he like causes it to be like lethally injured, and so he just picks up a rock and smashes it.
Yo.
And then he leaves, and then he comes back after the blood has evaporated, which is how I was originally going to use the word. And he's like, well, come to think of it, my ants would like that. So it's not like he smashes it. I wanted to make it clear that he doesn't kill it to feed the ants.
He kills it,
but it's out of misery. Yeah. But it didn't come across that way. So yeah. So step number one is figure out what the story is about. So I think we both have that in common.
Of course, and I mean, really, I think the reason why we're having this issue is because, of course, first and foremost, we waited to the last minute to really write this. But at the same time, and I don't want to stress this enough, as a writer, you shouldn't always stress about going into something knowing exactly what's happening. Because, I mean, the biggest part about writing is discovering something in what you are writing. And you can discover that thing. You can discover what it's about. And then on the second draft, you could delete everything and start over. Just delete certain sections. And only keep the things that work towards that theme that you're setting up.
Yeah, at the very least, this is another 700 words out of my million bad words I have to get out, right?
Exactly.
It's progress. I'm shoveling it.
How far do you think we are doing the right thing every week?
I mean, our stories are like average about like 1,000 words, right? Yeah. So 25. So we've written about 25,000 words. Yeah. This is episode 25, by the way. This is a milestone.
This is a quarter to episode 100.
That's right.
And once we hit that, we're done.
We should make it special. Also, maybe we should talk about this later. But we'll talk about this later. But I want to do Halloween special.
Yes,
Halloween
me too.
special. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But it can't be spooky or scary.
We'll figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Where was I in the story? So it's really just a matter of figuring out where I want this to go. Oh, and something I should talk about before inspiration. So less on the writing side.
Yeah.
I got the inspiration for the ants being a focus from the word, obviously, but also there's a YouTube channel called Ants Canada, and it's this guy that's just like super enthusiastic about ants, and he has like 7 like huge ant terrariums and he like makes a whole like every week he does basically an episode. It's almost like a story, where it's like, oh no, something's happening in the thing. Or something happened to these ants, or I'm gonna make a new thing for these new ants, and just like a story every time, right? Like something unbelievable happened, and so there's like a little arc in each one. It's pretty cool, and it's just, I mean, ants are really cool creatures as eusocial animals.
I mean, they're very useful in a lot of ways. Like, they're natural decomposers. Well,
I just think they're really interesting to look at.
Yeah, I mean, they get rid of stuff that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
On the same token, another tangent to that tangent. I used to watch this really great YouTube channel. I forgot what it was called, but basically, it was a Southern man who he specializes in basically taking out hornets' nests.
Okay.
And he goes all across like the South, and he keeps going after these larger and larger hornet's nests.
Okay.
And the reason why I like it is because after he like takes it down and like does all his thing, he keeps the nest, takes it home, and then he cracks it open, and it's almost like ASMR, but he's picking out the like larvae from the nest, and then he's keeping them in a bowl, and then he feeds that larva to his chickens. Because apparently larva is really good for chickens.
Okay.
And I don't know. I just really like watching it because like he just talks really low, and he knows exactly how to do it as fast as possible. Just bop 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 bop. He's just picking them out so fast.
This is a really weird thing.
It is very weird. I have no clue how I stumbled upon it, but I'm happy that I did, because whenever I feel stressed, you know, why not just watch a dude take on nature?
Sounds like a larva pimple popping thing. That sounds so gross. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Ants Canada. Check it out. It's a real fun channel, and maybe check out Jarvis's thing too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, if you just look up hornet nest extraction, I think he should come up.
All right.
And when you find him, you'll know you found him.
I want to stress that the Ants Canada guy is very humanistic to his creatures. Like, he got fucked up when he put some live cockroaches in his fire ants thing.
Why?
Like, he got really emotional about it.
Oh, did the ants kill the cockroach?
Yes, but it was kind of it had like babies while it was dying, and then the babies got eaten. Okay, anyway,
maybe I'm the
I don't know how much else I have to say about this. It was the right thing. Let's just say that.
I mean, like, was it fun? Like, did you enjoy it? And also, would you ever continue it?
Yeah, well, the one thing I'm going to take away from is that I actually started to get uncomfortable when I was writing about him killing the bluebird.
Okay.
And so next time, maybe I'll just make it even more uncomfortable. I'll talk about the bones cracking. I'll talk about him squishing his hand more and more. I'll talk about him putting it down and smashing a rock right into it.
Honestly, okay, I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
I want you to write a scene, exact same thing, except he finds this bluebird. One of its wings is, like, broken. And then, in his mind, he's like, well, I have to even it out. And I want you to write about him taking his hand and snapping his other wing, and then breaking his legs, and then just watching him for a bit, and then going back and forth if he should kill him, or wondering how long he will survive with all of his limbs broken.
I'm seeing another side of you in this episode, Jarvis, and I don't like it.
I mean, listen, you don't normally write.
Yeah, no. I was going to say,
things.
that makes me uncomfortable, and I don't want to write it, and maybe that's a reason why I should write it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I don't want to write about Weekend City. I don't know. I don't want to write about a cheerleader and her antics, but I did once. Well, vaguely.
You should try that again.
I should try it.
More genuinely.
I don't do genuine. I do jokes.
Write a happy story, Jarvis. Just write a happy story.
I mean, the story that I wrote this week was kind of happy.
It was content.
It was happy.
It was satisfied.
I mean, okay, it depends on what you mean by happy. Happy is...
I want happy, giddy, cheerful, sunshine and rainbows, cute puppies, just having a good time.
But where's the catharsis?
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on to our next session. Well, let's talk about listener stories.
Yo, these stories this week are mad fuego, dog.
All right, we're going to talk about 5 stories because unfortunately we don't have time to talk about all of them. Although, god damn it, we wish we did.
Yes. And the first story is from Tinder.
What?
Oh, someone submitted a story on Tinder.
Oh.
No, they didn't.
Oh.
But
it disappointed me, Jarvis.
If you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you see my Tinder, you better swipe right.
All right, the first story is by Ghost Pac-Man 4.
That one is named...
I don't think that's the first time they've written the story, but I think that might be the first time they got chosen. I'm not sure.
I think so. Well, go ahead and do a rundown on what it's about.
Give me a sec.
Oh, also, word to the audience. Of course, this section is filled with spoilers, but just because a story is spoiled doesn't mean that you shouldn't go back and read it.
Yeah, please go to the subreddit and read them. They're seriously fantastic stories. I say this every week, but I mean it every week, that I'm consistently impressed by what our listeners put out.
I mean, honestly, the number one way to become a better writer is to become the best reader.
Fair enough. And leaving comments, actually, please, if you go and read them, leave a comment. Not on all of them. I understand it's hard to think of a
only the ones that really speak to
you. But seriously, give feedback, right? So tell people what you liked about a piece and tell people what they can improve on. In a nice way, of course.
Yeah. Don't be harsh. If you're harsh, I'll be harsh to you.
That's not true.
Yes.
All right, so the story by Ghost Pac-Man. So it has this, it's called Lucky, and it's this very interesting take on basically the thing. There's this collective of a creature, and it lands on Earth. It's called the Specimen, and it's implied that it's actually very small. Throughout this piece, it talks about planets and stuff, so we think it's enormous, but when it encounters a human, the human describes the specimen and the vehicle it is in as a plastic bag full of water.
Yeah.
And so we get this really interesting perspective before the human drinks the specimen and gets assimilated. Yeah. So it's an interesting take on the thing. I think there's a similar take on this. There's basically a fan fiction of the movie The Thing from the Thing's perspective.
Ooh.
It's very good. I need to send it to you.
So it's doing like a Grendel type situation.
Yeah, although I haven't heard that term before, like used like that.
I mean, the story of Beowulf and
yeah. Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So in that story, the Thing is like terrified how all of the organisms on this planet are not interconnected. They're all individuals. And that's terrifying to it because it's a collective.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I would recommend, maybe I'll post it,
in the subreddit. Oh no, on the Discord.
Yeah, I'll just post it in the Patreon Discord. But if you want to look it up, it's out there.
Yeah, and what's it called?
I don't remember. It's the Thing from the Thing's perspective.
Just search that.
No, it's not a fan fiction. It's like it is a fan fiction, but it's like an article. Anyway, Ghost Pac-Man story is really great, and it's a great execution of that story. I especially like how we understand the specimen's perspective as an alien before we get to the interacting with the human, and I love I mentioned this, but the reveal of the specimen size is very interesting.
And also, I just feel that the setup to it is, I don't know, I just really like it, how it keeps you engaged throughout, but you do have all of these questions, and it all collates into a really nice ending.
Yeah, it's a very happy ending, even though we know that the Earth is going to get assimilated.
Yeah, but like, I think it begs the question, which is better.
Yeah, because the specimen really, like, it's running away from the rest of the collective, but that's just because of a little rebellion, basically, and it's like it does miss the collective. It's interesting. All right, so we've already spent quite a bit of time on that. So let's move on to Kaosubalu V2.
A typical morning. Tales of Adventure.
Yeah, so this is a continuation of their Tales of Adventure world.
Yeah. Which, the past entries have all been pretty good. And I'm very happy that they are continuing along this line. Because, of course you're not going to write a whole story in these short 30-minute bursts, but it is great to spend as much time in a world that you care about very much, spend as much time in that world as possible. So I am proud, like a father.
So what is this story about, Jarvis?
This story, I'm trying to remember.
I'm trying to find it. Okay, it's one of the more recent ones.
Yeah, it's right after yours.
So this is a set in a Dungeons and Dragons-esque world, and it follows the perspective of a little pixie.
Skit.
Named Skit, yeah, as it goes through the forest.
Skit
it's interesting.
Was not
it has
large for a pixie.
Yeah, it's very small. Mm-hmm. And it has they/them pronouns, which I thought was interesting. Mm-hmm. And basically, they find something called a broomy, which Kaosubalu explains is a bastardization. That sounds super negative. I don't know why.
Bastardization.
Okay, you just destroyed with the microphone. Of a brownie. And so basically, the skit flies down as the brownie is in being kind of an invader in the forest.
Flack.
Messes with the brownie, with the broomy, and flies off to get more warriors. And so, I like the world building. Right, the broomy is covered in chitinous armor from insects. For a critique, I would say that I found the environment and the picturing this a little bit more difficult than I thought it was. It might have been just that I was distracted.
Also, they said in the comment that the idea over time kind of degraded to where they felt very rushed towards the end, which is, it's part of the game, baby. But, yeah, I mean, I do see that within the piece, but I do also see that there is a lot of thought that went into this, and I know it fits very nicely in the rest of the world that you're making, which is why I said that I really enjoyed this entry.
So one other thing, I was trying to figure out why I felt a little disconnected from the setting. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it needs more explanation than what I'm going to give it. But one little example, this morning, the small pixie chose a spot near the peak of the tree, where they could make out the treetops all around and the peaks of the mountains that form the valley they and their tribe hive called home. I don't know if it's just me, and maybe I'm just fixating on something random because I'm trying to find an explanation of why I feel this way.
Yeah.
But it could be that it's a spot, right? It's a general spot near the peak of the tree. I don't know if maybe I would have felt a little stronger about it if a specific branch was chosen and described a little bit, and maybe.
So you wanted some grounding details.
Yeah, or at the very maybe it's Skit that needed a little bit more detailing to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just there's something that I wasn't grasping, and maybe it was just me. Yeah. But I felt that it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, but I feel that some of these things could definitely be addressed on a second draft.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Everything we say is very fixable.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, anything that you write is just a whip. Work in progress.
That's right. But I still really enjoyed the story. So that's it. Yeah. Let's move on to
No Goodbye.
No Goodbye, which finally, as I successfully predicted,
yes,
got their role.
Yeah,
so,
which is really great because if you look on the list, they submitted 6 times.
I'm pretty sure they've submitted basically every single.
Yeah, but I mean, like on our list since we started this, it's been like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But we're here, baby.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting story about a protest in Jakarta. It follows the perspective of a student protester. So we get a scene from them, and then we cut to the parents being concerned, the father being really concerned about the daughter who's protesting. And then we get a scene back with the daughter as the protest escalates. But they continue, and we kind of get the chills at the end as the whole crowd chants, even though we don't know what it means. Because
but I think I enjoy that the most. How, like, it is definitely this like other.
It's another language, yeah.
But you get where it's going. I think that's just a testament to the writing and just setting up these stakes and these characters. Because I mean, like, of course, this idea of revolution is ingrained in our DNA. You know, like everything has happened because of some sort of revolution.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, it is one way. And I don't know. I haven't really seen a revolution story in quite some time. You know, it was refreshing to read one that has a little bit of what's the word? Perception.
That's one take.
What?
Has a little perception. I don't know what that means, Travis.
It's the best I got.
Okay. Yeah, so one thing I really like about it is the buildup of emotion as, we get the protest set up, and then the concern over the parents' concern and their fear, pride, and envy, an odd cocktail of emotions, because they want
anxiety.
Yeah, they're afraid for their daughter, but they're also proud that they're doing something, and they wish that they had done something. And so there's really complicated emotions from this character. And then the protest escalates, and things go bad, and we're concerned. But then the characters come back and fight back, basically. And so this is really, really strong emotional arc.
Yeah.
So
they fight the power strong.
Yeah, so good job. I forget. No Goodbye. So next we're going to talk about Nipoten.
Yeah. This, like, I know a comment already said it, but it does feel very much so like a Sherlock Holmes-esque scene.
Yeah, so there's this. So basically, the people are on a train. This woman sits down in front of a man, and then we get this very fast-paced dialogue back and forth, quipping off each other, saying things unsaid.
And then at the end, she stills his rolling.
Yep. So this the number one. The best thing about the story is the quick back and forth. Of the dialogue.
Oh, 100%. I was invested throughout, and I don't know. It felt very natural, but like in a way where there wasn't those pauses, where it was just back to back to back to back, and I was interested in reading from line to line to see where it would end up.
Yeah, I wanna read out a little section. Well, just from the beginning of their exchange. Good day, the woman said. He said, better now. Marcy Enge, William Porter. Lovely name, not from around here? This is America. Is anyone from anywhere around here? I was born in Evanston, just north of Chicago. Went downstate for a meeting and decided to take a more scenic route back, though it turns out there isn't much to see. You just need to keep your eyes open a little longer. Marcy smiled again. So did William. Between them was a small table, many to the side, lifted deftly by Marcy with one hand, signaling with the other. A waiter appeared to their dining car. Chateau Ray's, 2 glasses. Like, it's very fast paced.
Yeah.
And a lot is implied with a line, right? The interplay is very great. Yeah, it feels straight out of a detective novel.
Exactly.
And that goes throughout the whole story. So I commented on this. So Nipiton's already heard this, but the one criticism I had was that sometimes it felt it was a little too fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
Where not in that section, but later when some more complicated events happen involving the stealing and some other things, I kind of ripped through it, and
But I also feel with that section, I mean, all they really needed was a line or two, just to let it breathe.
Yeah, I think just having a single thick paragraph between the long, fast exchanges was all you really all needed to fix it. So I think,
and also I feel within that section you could ground it a little bit more and describe a lot more things. Because I mean, I feel that I did love the quick back and forth, but just reading through it, the only real description that I remember getting was the train was cutting through the wind and the trees were passing by.
Yeah. So there's a balance to be struck, obviously, but I think this is a really good example if you just want to go and read of some very fast-paced dialogue and how that works. All right, so let's talk about Generous. Is it Generous Nat?
Yeah, it's Generous Nat.
Generous Nat, the last story.
This one. So, I really, really like this one, and the reason why I like this is because it feels very honest. It feels like it's going to a place that felt very real, and I enjoyed that because of that reason.
What the story is, for those who haven't read it,
everyone needs to read it. Hey,
yeah,
it's fine to start off with my initial opinion.
I feel like people want to know what it is.
Do you know? Do you want to hear my opinion, audience?
After they know what it is. So this story is titled "Regret," and it has. So someone is going to a funeral for their father, and we get this really great narration of their thoughts in this third person limited.
Yeah.
No, it's first person. What am I saying? But we really get a good snapshot of their thoughts as they kind of. I mean, their thoughts are kind of scattered through this thing because they've just had this emotional. Their father has died, and they feel complicated things about their father.
Yeah, the father died 5 days ago.
Yeah, 5 days ago.
So it's fresh.
Yeah, and so basically we go through them through the act of the funeral as they kind of come to terms with the death. And so there's this really awesome arc of emotions from the beginning. They just don't know how to address it, right? Yes. There's this really great section at the beginning. Actually, well, the first 4 paragraphs are them kind of describing the shoes that they're wearing. Mm-hmm. My eyes slipped past the dampening toe of my shoe to the crystalline grass that shone perfectly fractured in the morning sunlight, which, awesome writing. Mm-hmm. I let out a deep shutting breath and shook my head. Shoes. I was thinking about shoes on a day like this. Idiot. And they clearly don't know how to think about their father's death. And
but then I think it definitely changes when the mother comes in, and he's basically this person is overtaken with a sense of anger, which of course is one of the stages, but it's unaimed anger. It's anger at the mom, and of course it's anger at a lot of different things. But
and at themselves. Yeah. We go through this through a physical description of the emotions they go through, a rise and fall through different things. I don't want to describe it all because then we'd be here for a while. But basically, he kind of comes to terms, and he starts crying, and the anger leaves. And they feel sad, and they say sorry, and so we get a little rest, right? Mm-hmm. As they kind of come to terms. I smiled weakly at my brothers and my family, and I leaned back to my mom so I could whisper in her ear. But then immediately after, we're hit with a gut punch of emotion as the mom says the thing that the character has been missing this whole time, being told that their father loved them and that the father knew that they loved their father. Yeah. And so, it's this really great, it made me tear up. So, and you know how hard it's been recently. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Generous Nat. I would really recommend people go to the story and look at how the emotions, basically how he sets up the hit of emotion on you.
And it's set up perfectly, honestly. I don't really find any fault in this story. Personally, I want more.
More what?
I think like this story could work well if it could be a little bit longer. You could definitely let some of these things breathe. And I think that's definitely something that in a lot of short stories is missing, is that breath. It's just letting the moment happen. And I think that's only because that's my own personal style. And I know I like to meander on certain things. And I like to let stuff sit so that the reader gets a chance to really take it in to the mind and take it to heart. But I also feel that it's something that is missing in some short stories, like overall in the entire scheme of short stories. I feel that this story will work perfectly if you do have that reprieve.
Okay. All right, that is all the stories we have time for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote. Let me give a shout out to all the people who wrote this week, which include Sarah Penguin. It's fine by me.
It's fine by me.
Oh, okay. Can you say it at the normal volume?
It's fine by me.
Captain Rhino.
Generous Gnat.
Good enough. Nipiton.
Killer Gnats.
Calinero 985.
Kamikaze Tomato.
Shin 7.
No Goodbye.
Capos 21.
More Didamanale.
Good enough. Ghost Pac-Man 4.
Slice.
Synths. And Cow Subaru V2. Thank you so much for writing. I'm sorry that we couldn't talk about your stories. We definitely would have had a lot to say, but unfortunately we just don't have the time.
Exactly. So please keep on doing the right thing, because if you do the right thing, we'll do the right thing.
Yeah, so if you want to be like these wonderful people, you can write along with us.
Yeah. And the best way to ride along with us is to submit on a subreddit, which is /r/do the right thing.
Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, should we do the
Let's
new...
do it now. Let's start.
Okay. So we're going to do an outro, and then we're going to step back and do a new section.
Well,
no,
we're going to do the outro, and then we're going to do the new section, and then we're going to do the words, and then we're going to leave.
We also have to mention Doof Media.
So we're going to do the words, and then we're going to mention Doof Media, and then we're going to leave.
Okay. Sure. So yeah, you can also find out the new words as they come out on Fridays by following @RightThingCast on Twitter or going to the subreddit.
And if you have any questions whatsoever, or if for some reason you're not able to submit through the subreddit, but you still want us to see it or possibly submit for you, just send us a good old-fashioned email at rightthingcast@gmail.com.
That's perfect. Yeah, if you want to support the content that we create and all the other amazing content on the Doof Media Network.
And they're all amazing.
Yeah, you can go to the Doof Media Patreon and donate $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. $1 a month gets you access to the Doof Media Discord, which is poppin' 24/7.
Oh yeah, it's damn Skippy.
Yeah, and we have this really damn Skippy. That's great. But so it's about Doof Media. So we recently hit a patron goal.
Yeah.
And
big boy goal.
I was about to hesitate in announcing this, but it is public on the Doof Media Patreon, and there is an announcement there. But we recently just hit the goal to get to make plans for a new Doof Media podcast. It's going to be a Dark Tower an analysis of the Dark Tower, a la We've Got Worm.
Yeah.
Dark Tower is a famous series.
Very famous, very great by the amazing writer Stephen King. And it also has a really bad movie out there, which they might also review.
Yeah. We've got some... We still don't know what the title's going to be. My vote is for the Doof Tower, but...
Personally, I think it should be called the Flatcast.
A really a good pitch I heard was the Dark Tower read through series, a podcast. Or let me actually see what my favorite one is, because in the Discord people were suggesting names for it. Suggestion by Jaso, the Doof Media Dark Tower podcast, but also we will talk about the other connected works by King and maybe the movie, a book report by Scott Daly. So I would like it to be called that one. That's my vote, my official vote.
So if you want to help it be called that, donate to the Patreon.
That's right. And there's actually a new stretch goal. I think it was there before, but now it's the highlights, our biggest goal. At 450 patrons, Matt is going to write a audio narrative, an audio play or something. And we'll all help produce it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. We'll see.
Hopefully. I mean,
it's not set in stone.
It is not set in stone, but if you want some more amazing content that might include your favorite best boys, please donate to the Patreon. Help us get there. You know?
And we do have 200 patrons to go before we figure it out.
Exactly. So get 200 of your best friends and sign up.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're basically out of time, but since we don't have a guest this week, we figure we have some extra time, even though we're already at an hour and a half.
Exactly. And with that extra time, we've been kind of workshopping a new little segment that we want to throw in for when we're lacking a third voice, like keep us sane and all that.
Yeah. So let's really go off the deep end and let's do our little idea corner.
Yeah. So, do you want to start or should I? Well, let's go ahead and talk about what it is. So basically, the Idea Corner is a little segment where we both just talk about any of the notes in our journals or on our pads or whatever that we have written down on certain ideas that we might want to go further with, just want to talk about, just want to throw into the ether, just talking about it.
Yeah, so... I mean, I highly, highly, highly recommend this to anyone who wants to write, even just for fun. Literally, just keep a Google Docs thing open on your phone or carry a notebook with you and just write down any idea that comes to your head, even if it's not fully developed, because otherwise you will forget it, and it will be lost to the sands of times, and we will never see your glory.
Exactly.
But recently I had this fun idea. One of my world-building projects has a lot to do with... all of the fantasy races in it have something to do with identity. Like, they have a different way to form their identity, and that's kind of like what I'm focusing that world-building project around. And so, one angle I wanted to focus on was our outward appearance as our form of identity.
Yeah.
So I had this idea for a race of spirits, and those who have read Pact are going to recognize some things about Pact in here, and I realized afterwards that it's partially inspired by it. But these spirits, they are just like a kind of like incorporeal form. They're kind of like a ghost. And to make themselves have an identity, to figure out what they are, they attach themselves to objects, and the objects kind of become their body, right?
Okay. So like a ghost can become a vase.
Well, they create their form with multiple objects, right?
Okay.
So all the pieces of a vase might come together to form a face or whatever.
Okay.
So in the wild, they would have been like nature spirits, right? So they would have been like skin made of bark, right? With maybe they use bones of animals for teeth, right? And antlers and stuff. But their body would be like leaves and whatever else, and they pick their form off of the things around them. But as humans come onto the scene, the materials that they use their body for become more complex, right? So you have like actual masks made of carved wood by humans forming this new identity. And so I don't know. I'm still exploring it. I don't know if it fits into that world that I was talking about.
Well, I absolutely love the concept.
Thank you.
Like how you could explore that, and I know that you'll do a fantastic job, like describing these items coming together to form this strange shape that in turn becomes this mask or face.
Yeah, I had something about how humans we're born with an identity. It's given to us. We have a name, right? We have a physical form, and those things, even if we don't like them, right, they do form a basis for identity.
Yeah.
Well, these creatures have to figure out the whole thing for themselves, start to finish, right? And they might feel themselves making bad decisions. Maybe it's really hard for them to change their form. You know, releasing a part of their body is like losing a part of their identity. I don't know. I'm going to still continue exploring it, but I think it's a good start for something.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead. Tell me your idea, Jarvis.
So, my idea, just to talk to the audience a little bit, what I do when it comes to ideas, if I don't write down in my journal, I always have an app on my phone that I just write down all the ideas. And this is one that I came up with, and I'm going to read out. The eldest of a close-knit vampire family is starting to change, nearing a stunning 2,000 years old.
Wow.
They become more crazed, hungry, and can't just survive off of cow blood and cold blood donations. They need fresh blood. And the family has to protect the town from them. So when I came up with this, I kind of saw it as like this kind of like physically old looking a vampire type person. And, they're all dressed like modern garb because it's very modern. But he is bedridden and he's very old, but his features are starting to turn more animalistic. So his sharp teeth are getting sharper, his nails are growing longer, he's getting hairy, he's getting like this like leathery skin, and because at first he wasn't able to move, but now he's able to move, jump, and he's faster than ever. And this family who has like made their way in this town, just doing the bare minimum, like living their lives beyond this kind of curse that they have, because they don't love being vampires. It's kind of a disability to them.
I feel like living 2,000 years is a pretty good cost.
Yeah, I mean, like, living 2,000 years is cool, yes, but at the same time, they can't do a lot of things that they, in that time, have always wanted to. Because they want to live that experience.
You could also just die if you wanted to.
That is true. You could also,
and you'd still have had lived a full life. I don't know. I don't have sympathy for vampires. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to build this sympathy.
Yeah, no.
It's I guess it's a form of a duty that I kind of want to focus on when I'm thinking of it. How like this is your town. You grew up your whole life here, and your great grandfather is threatening to destroy this town. Yeah. So I don't know. It's
the classic problem of new world versus old world.
Exactly. So I mean, yeah, it's not like the most unique idea, but I don't know. I think it would be interesting to play in the world of vampires because, of course, it's been played in a whole bunch. It's just been played out. But I also feel that it is very possible to take something that is old or something that is played out and provide a new take on it with fresh eyes. So I'm very interested. Also, I watched What We Do in the Shadows for like the 4th time a couple of days ago.
Jarvis keeps bobbing his head back and forth, or side to side,
from side
with
to
every
side.
single word. I just want to carry that to our listeners.
And because I watched that film, I was like, yo, vampires can be cool again. So that's my whole life goal, to make vampires cool again.
You're right.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have for you guys this week. Yes. Did we have anything else we wanted to say?
I mean, we're good. What we need to say is, what are the words for next week?
What are the words for next week, Jarvis? Can you please tell me?
Yes, I can.
I need to know. Jarvis. It's on the Reddit as well. I already posted it.
I'm trying to find it.
Just go to Reddit.
So, the beautiful words for next week. Drum roll, please.
I don't do a good drum roll.
They are few, toothsome, meaty, and moon.
So few as in not many. Toothsome, it's tooth and then some, and I'll explain that word in a second, because it's not what I thought it meant. Meaty, as in like
fleshy,
meat-like.
Yes.
And moon, which the planetoid around our planet, our satellite. So toothsome, I want to start there. Actually, so I thought it meant having lots of teeth.
Yeah.
It does not mean that.
Oh.
It means, according to the dictionary, it means something that is tasty or appetizing, or someone who is attractive.
Ooh. So someone can be tasty and appetizing.
Yes, which I think that's how it translates. Like, ooh, you're toothsome. Ooh. I hate it, though. I hate it so much. Teeth are the least appetizing part of eating to me.
Really? Do you don't like chewing teeth?
I don't know. I have a big... I hate that. It's the worst part I literally have nightmares about it. Like, it's a very big part of my nightmares.
Well,
it's always there's something weird happening with my teeth.
I feel that, like, just by thinking about the idea of teeth being in my mouth,
loose teeth are
like
the worst.
chewing those teeth, is very terrifying. On I think a biological horror type.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it so much.
But,
so I really don't want anyone. No one use the word toothsome. I don't want to hear it.
I'm definitely going to use it. I'm going to use it wrong.
Okay. Well, hey, that's the thing. You can make it mean whatever you want, and it might as well mean having lots of teeth.
Yeah.
I will say, if you have tooth horror in your story, please put a spoiler tag and give me a content warning. I will still read it. I just need to be in a safe space when I do it. You know?
Ooh, I kind of want to write like disgusting tooth horror to where like
I've read some. There's a really good one. You know the SCP Foundation?
Yeah.
For those who don't know, it's a creative writing project that involves writing.
Wait, it's not real?
I hope not. It's a creative writing project where people online write basically usually horror stories, but there's other genres as well, via this genre of writing the containment procedures for this anomalous spooky object. But there's also short stories as well, and one involves this witch that collects teeth from people, and it's written in second person, and it makes you feel like you're going to pull out your own teeth. It's oh god, it's horrible. I think it's called Teeth, Deary.
Yeah, Teeth Deary. Which, just to talk about that a little bit more, as I was reading it, my teeth started to hurt because
it's good.
She just basically talks to you, and it's like, hey, that tooth looks like it hurts, doesn't it? And then
you feel it in your mouth with your tongue.
Yeah,
that loose one, just a little bit loose, isn't it?
Yeah. And then he pulls out the tooth.
Okay,
keeps doing.
I got it. Let's finish off the podcast. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. So if you spot a very toothsome girl, and you know those kind of girls are very few. What was the other word? If you spot a toothsome girl, because you know that those kind of girls are in the few, you might feel a little meaty because you haven't been working out recently. You've really been letting yourself go. But don't worry, because you forget you're a werewolf, and a new moon is right around the corner.
Right, that story. Fuck, I had a train of thought. It's gone now. Oh yes, the butcher had a wonderful dream. He dreamed that the moon was meaty. A meaty, delicious moon made of salami and bologna and ribs, toothsome meats and flesh that he could just have a day in. But really, it was just because he had a few too many drinks that night before.
Why were you from Queens? Like,
I don't know.
It's toothy and meaty.
Toothy, some meaty stuff.
Spider-Man.
I need more pictures of meaty Spider-Man.
Yeah, meaty Spider-Man.
Okay,
Spider-Man after he lets himself go.
This is the worst ending that we've ever had to our podcast. I've never not wanted to listen to our podcast more than the last 10 minutes.
Well, you know what? I think the best way to not listen to the podcast is to listen to it, do the right thing, and then not.
And then not what?
Well, see, okay. If you listen to something, you can subjectively choose not to listen to it. So, you should do the right thing.
Hey, this can help you do the right thing. This is literally the worst ending we've had. This is flat out.
Because it doesn't make any sense.
I've been so destroyed with the tooth stuff.
It's disgusting.
That tooth and, stuff. Again, Matt stole all our maturity. We took it with him.
Yeah.
And we've got nothing left other than juvenile jokes. I feel like we've reaffirmed our position as the youngest members of the Doofcast.
Yeah. Well, because we're young, we're bubbly, we got jokes, and we don't pay rent.
I pay rent.
I do too, but I try my best not to.
Okay.